The air was heavy the moment we broke through the last layer of stone. Dust fell in sheets. Our lights cut through the dark and the chamber opened wider than I expected. I remember the sound first, not the sight. A low hum, like voices caught in the walls, rising and falling as if they were breathing. We moved deeper. My hands were shaking, not from fear, at least that's what I told myself. The beam of my flashlight found the coffin, cracked down the middle. A fracture ran the length of the lid, and from that fracture, something seeped. It wasn't water. It was dark, thicker than water, glistening like oil. The stream rose against gravity, crawling up the wall, leaving trails that shimmered in the light. Blood, but wrong. Blood that refused to fall down. I heard Latin, words I didn't understand, but the cadence was too perfect. Too rehearsed, the kind of voice you don't hear with your ears. It pressed into the back of my skull, echoing from inside, as if the chamber itself was chanting. I froze. I thought I was imagining it. But when Alex dropped his lamp, I knew he heard it too. The sound of glass shattering rang across the floor. John cursed. Emily's voice trembled, saying something I didn't catch. And then silence. A silence so sharp I thought my eardrums burst. That's when I realized it wasn't silence at all. It was breath. One long, steady breath filling the room, pulling air out of my lungs. The beam cut across the far end of the chamber. Something moved, not quick, not human. A shadow stretched itself along the wall, tall, deliberate. And then it stood there, at the center, black cloth dragging the stone, hood drawn low, body larger than any man I've ever seen. I couldn't see a face, just the impression of it, blurred, shifting. A figure shaped like a priest, a figure that should have been a statue, but it was breathing with us, over us. John lifted his tool as if that would mean anything. Emily whispered no. Alex stumbled back, but the figure didn't wait. The air buckled, the sound cracked like thunder underground. My chest caved as if I'd been hit. All of them went flying, slammed into stone, sprawled across the floor like broken dolls. I reached for the wall, waiting for the impact. It never came. I was still standing. Dust swirled around me. My ears rang. The figure turned, cloth rippling, and the breath fell heavy against my face. I thought it would finish me like it did the others. But it stopped. It leaned closer, the hood tilting, as if studying me. The voice came again, clearer this time, a whisper that felt like it was written inside my bones. You carry the mark. That was the first moment I knew we weren't thieves anymore. We were already condemned. I'm Mark Johnson, and everything I am now began in a hospital room. My son, Ryan, is 10. He's been fighting cancer since he was 6. 4 years of scans, chemo, and nights under fluorescent lights have taken more money than I'll ever earn. More hope than I thought I could lose. I'm his father. And when I realized I couldn't keep him alive with an honest life, I crossed the line. I used to study archaeology in college, not long enough to finish a degree, but long enough to learn the tools, the maps, the places most people don't know exist, long enough to know where the bones are buried. That knowledge became my way out. Or at least, I thought it was. The first job was small. A site in New Mexico, tucked away where no one watched. Just a pot, some shards, a few trinkets. We sold it to a man in Albuquerque. He paid cash. That one envelope covered almost 2 months of Ryan's treatment. I told myself it was survival. After that, it became something else. A habit, a profession, a sin I justified every time I saw his pale face under hospital light. The team came together fast. John Harris was the first. He's older than me, 40-something. Used to be military. He doesn't talk about it much. He doesn't need to. You can see it in the way he moves, the way he scans a room like he's already preparing for an ambush. John's practical, cold when he needs to be. He's the kind of man who carries a pistol even when you swear you're only bringing tools. His rule, never rely on luck, always bring steel. Then Alex Foster. He's younger. Tech kid, hands always shaking a little, but steady when he's working a lock. He knows how to strip alarms, how to kill a camera feed, how to make an old padlock look like butter. He cracks things open. That's his gift. He calls it engineering. John calls it breaking and entering. I call it necessary. Emily Ross was the last. 28. Sharp eyes, sharper tongue. She could pass for a graduate student or a tourist or a field researcher. She played roles, carried herself like she belonged anywhere. That was her mask. She wore it well. With her on sight, people stopped asking questions. They saw a scholar, not a thief. She could get us through doors that would have stayed closed. The four of us became a crew. We weren't family. Not friends, not really. We worked. We split. We stayed quiet. That was the agreement. Still, when you spend enough nights underground with people, crawling through dirt and bones, you learn their breaths. You learn the sound of their fear. And they learn yours. In the beginning, the jobs were easy. 9 times we went out across the states, each one a little bigger than the last. Each one bought me another week, another round of medicine for Ryan. Ohio was first, the Newark Earthworks. We went in at night, flashlights low. Alex killed a lock on a gate that should have been sealed decades ago. Inside, we pulled a handful of carved stones, nothing spectacular, but enough. When we walked out, his GoPro flickered and died, even though the battery was full. It came back the second we hit the surface. He called it a glitch. I wanted to believe him. Arizona was second. A canyon site, shallow caves with offerings left by tribes long gone. Emily swore she saw a woman in white on the ridge staring down at us. John said it was moonlight catching the rock. But I saw the way Emily's face drained of color, and I knew she wasn't lying to herself. The third was in Nevada. Old mining tunnels. We were after coins, relics traded by settlers and buried in the collapse. The deeper we went, the colder it got. Not normal cold. Breath froze in front of us, and the air carried sound, like picks striking stone, though no one was there. John told us to move fast. We moved. Fourth was New Mexico again. Sandstone ruins near a reservation border. Wind cut through the chambers and turned into words, not clear, just syllables, a whisper. I said it was pressure in the rock. Alex laughed, though his hands shook the rest of the night. Fifth, back to Ohio. The Serpent Mound. We never should have touched it. Soil turned darker the deeper we dug, almost black though no rain had fallen. Emily said she smelled iron. John said it was just dirt. But when we packed the tools, there were stains on her gloves she couldn't wash off. Rust, maybe. Or something else. Sixth was Utah. Petroglyphs carved into stone, a site only locals knew. We didn't take much, just fragments. That night in the motel, every carving we photographed showed faces that weren't carved on the stone. Smiling faces, dozens. Alex deleted the files. None of us argued. Seventh was Colorado, a burial cave high in the mountains. We carried out beads, ornaments. On the way down, the rope burned in my hands though the air was freezing. I still have the scar. I never told Ryan where it came from. Eighth was Arizona again, this time a deeper cave. We found bowls painted red, stacked as if waiting for us. No dust, no decay. Fresh. John said don't touch them. We didn't. We left empty-handed. That was the only time. The ninth was Nevada. Desert flatland, a ruin swallowed by sand. When we opened a stone chest, a swarm of flies poured out though nothing inside was rotten. The sound was deafening. We dropped the chest and ran. Later, Alex swore one fly was still buzzing in his ear when he lay down that night. It stopped only at dawn. 9 jobs, 9 envelopes of cash, 9 steps further down a road I couldn't turn back from. And every time I kissed Ryan's forehead, I told myself it was worth it, that he'd live, that his future justified my sins. But when he asked me why I always smelled like dirt and metal, I couldn't answer. I told him it was work. He nodded, too tired to question. That hurt more than the lies. We lived by rules. Our rules. They weren't written anywhere. They were spoken, repeated, memorized until they felt like scripture. The first rule was simple. Never leave a trace. No footprints, no fingerprints, no broken doors. If it looked untouched, then no one came looking. The second rule, never touch religious relics. A coin is money. A vase is history. But a crucifix, a chalice, a piece tied to faith, we left it behind. That was our line. Break it, and the job wasn't worth it. The third rule, never use your real name. Inside the site, we were ghosts. No names, no ties. If someone whispered your name where it shouldn't be whispered, the night could turn against you. The fourth rule, never believe the rumors. Every dig has stories, curses, guardians, strange deaths. We listened, then laughed, then ignored them. Fear breeds mistakes. Mistakes bury men. The fifth rule, never go back twice. A site once touched is already fragile. Go back, and the risk doubles. Greed gets you killed. Those rules carried us through 9 jobs, 9 sites, 9 envelopes of cash. They felt unbreakable. They felt like protection, almost holy, like a covenant we'd written for ourselves. And as long as we followed them, we survived. But rules don't change fate, and fate was waiting overseas. I heard about Italy through a man I never should have trusted. A collector. He leaned close across the table and told me about a vault under Monte Cassino. He said it was untouched, hidden, older than anything we'd seen in the States. He said the relics inside could fund treatment for 10 years, maybe more. His eyes didn't blink when he said it. He wanted a cut. I wanted a miracle. I didn't tell Ryan. I told him I'd be back soon, that I had to travel for work. He nodded, too tired to ask what kind of work. I left him in the care of my sister. She sat beside his bed, reading, holding his hand the way I couldn't. I kissed his forehead. I promised I'd come home. Promises are cheap when you don't know if you'll keep them. The flight to Rome felt longer than it should have. Every mile between me and Ryan stretched tighter, heavier. John said it would be fine. Alex tried to joke, said Italians don't even lock their doors. Emily stayed silent, watching the window, her reflection darker than the night outside. We landed. The air smelled old, older than any ruin we'd touched back home. The stones here carried weight, the kind that pressed into your chest, reminding you that faith had built walls long before money ever did. Monte Cassino waited, and I was ready to break every rule we'd ever sworn to keep. The descent into the vault at Monte Cassino was slower than I expected. The stairs were cut into stone, narrow, damp, slick with centuries of dust. Our lights pressed against the walls, and the shadows bent back at us, warped like smoke. Every step echoed louder than it should have, like the mountain didn't want us inside, like it was warning us. John led, pistol low against his leg, though we'd agreed no weapons. His boots tapped a steady rhythm. Alex followed close, toolkit clanging against his hip, every sound amplified by the chamber. He muttered under his breath, little fragments of prayers he claimed he didn't believe in. Emily was behind me, her hand brushing the stone for balance, her breath short, sharp, faster than normal. I counted each step. I told myself if I kept count, it would stay normal. But normal was gone the second we passed the gate. The air grew heavier the deeper we went. It pressed into my chest, cold and wet, smelling of limestone and something else, something scorched, metallic, sharp. At one landing we stopped. The silence pressed down, too thick. Emily whispered, "Do you hear that?" None of us answered, but I did. A faint scrape like stone dragged over stone far below. John raised a hand. We waited. The scrape faded. He waved us forward, jaw clenched, eyes hard. The corridor narrowed again, ceiling lowering, walls sweating moisture. Our lights caught carvings, crosses, crude, etched by hands centuries ago. Some upside down, some split down the middle. I tried not to look too long. The stone seemed to shift if I stared. Alex broke the silence. "Why the hell would anyone seal this up?" John snapped. "Shut it. Doesn't matter why, just matters what's left." Emily whispered. "Feels wrong." John shot back, "Everything we do is wrong." His voice carried more weight than he intended. It stuck in the air, heavy, accusing. When the corridor opened into the chamber, I stopped breathing for a moment. My light froze against the far wall. There was a coffin, not like the wooden boxes I'd seen before. This was stone, black, carved smooth, lid fractured in a jagged line that split the surface, a scar across centuries. From the crack seeped a dark liquid, not dripping down, not staining the floor. It crawled upward, streaking across the stone wall like veins of red-black mercury. I knew what it looked like. I knew what my mind told me it was. Blood. But blood doesn't rise. Blood doesn't defy gravity. Alex whispered, "Jesus Christ." His voice cracked. Too loud. John spun, hissed at him to shut it, but even John's voice trembled. I'd never heard that from him before. We stepped closer. The air hummed, a vibration in the walls, in my teeth. At first I thought it was machinery, something buried deeper. Then I heard words. Latin, layered, overlapping, the cadence steady like a choir rehearsing. I don't speak Latin, none of us did. But the rhythm was unmistakable. A prayer. A prayer that wasn't being said by any mouth in the room. Emily's hand clamped onto my arm. Her nails bit through the glove. "You hear that?" she asked. Her eyes were wide, pupils blown wide from fear. I nodded. We all heard it. None of us admitted it out loud. The floor around the coffin was dusted in ash, not thick, not scattered, arranged. Patterns traced in gray and black, circles within circles, lines intersecting like geometry pulled from scripture. I crouched, touched the dust. It clung to my glove, greasy, wrong. When I lifted my hand, the scent hit me. Burnt flesh, old, dried, preserved in the stone. John muttered, "It's empty." He was right. The coffin wasn't holding a body, only fragments. Ash and bone blackened beyond recognition. Whatever had been buried there had been consumed, not by time, by fire. The chant grew louder. The chamber shuddered. I felt pressure in my skull, like someone pressing from inside. Alex dropped his toolkit with a clang. He cursed, bent to pick it up, froze halfway, eyes locked on the far wall. "Something's moving," he whispered. His voice was paper thin. I turned my light. A figure stood there, hood drawn, cloth dragging, taller than any man I've ever seen. The body was solid, but the edges blurred, bending the light around it. Black fabric rippled, though no wind stirred. The shape of a priest, the outline of a monk. And it breathed. The whole room shifted with that breath, pulling air out of our lungs, giving it back in waves that tasted of smoke. Alex gasped. Emily whispered no. John raised his pistol, but the shadow moved before he could aim. The sound cracked the chamber, like thunder tearing through stone. The air buckled. My ribs collapsed. Pain exploded in my chest, and I hit the wall. When I opened my eyes, John was sprawled face down, pistol skidding away. Emily slammed into the dust, choking. Alex lay twisted, blood at his temple. I waited for the same. I waited for my bones to shatter against stone. But it didn't happen. I was still standing. My knees shook, but I was upright. Breathing. Alive. The figure turned, its hood tilted toward me. I couldn't see a face, only the suggestion of it, blurred, shifting, unfinished. It leaned closer. The cloth dragged the floor, hissing across stone. The whisper came again, not in the air, but inside my skull. Not words I should have understood, but I understood them anyway. Mark Johnson, my blood iced. Rule 3. Never use your real name. Inside a site, we were ghosts. Ghosts don't carry names. But my name was spoken in the dark, and the dark knew it. The voice pressed deeper, clearer, as if it carved itself into bone. You carry the mark. I didn't answer. Couldn't. My throat locked, my tongue heavy. The shadow loomed taller, silent now, waiting. Behind me, the others groaned, broken but alive. The coffin dripped its impossible stream, lines of red crawling higher, forming shapes on the wall that I dared not read. I thought I'd seen death before. I thought I knew fear. But in that chamber, staring at a figure that breathed centuries of silence, I realized I hadn't known anything at all. The figure stood before me, towering, breath pulling through the chamber like wind dragged through a cathedral. My knees wanted to bend, but I didn't fall. His hood shifted. The whisper pressed deeper, burning behind my ribs. You carry the mark. I don't know how long I stood frozen. Seconds, years, I couldn't tell. John groaned on the floor, trying to rise. Emily coughed dust, muttering prayers she swore she never remembered learning. Alex clutched his head, rocking. I wanted to help them, but the shadow didn't move. It was fixed on me. Finally it spoke again, louder, layered with voices beneath the voice. The throne is empty. The kingdom above has no king. My throat rasped. What are you? The hood tilted. Not what. Who? Benedict of Nursia, bound to stone, burned by traitors, cast from the place of light. I stand where I should not stand, because chains bind even heaven itself. The name cut through me. I had read it before. Old texts, history books, a saint, founder of a rule that shaped centuries of monks and prayers, dead for more than 1,000 years. And now he breathed before me. Emily whispered, Saint. Benedict. Her voice cracked on the word. The figure turned toward her. She flinched, but it didn't strike. Yes. What remains of him? And what remains is enough to see truth. The chamber shook again, not from the saint, but from something above. Boots, orders barked, the clang of steel. Flashlights pierced down the stairwell. A voice carried sharp and stern. Stand back, in the name of the Holy See. I turned. Men in black uniforms poured into the chamber, rifles raised. A priest in his 50s stepped forward, cassock crisp, silver cross glinting. His accent rolled through the stone. Father Gabriel Moreno, by authority of the Vatican, this site is sealed. Step away. John coughed blood, spitting grit. Took you long enough, he muttered. Gabriel's eyes narrowed, settling on the figure. Abomination, spirit of deception, you will not claim these souls. Benedict's voice cracked like stone splitting. You call me abomination? You, who guard an empty throne? You, who kneel to silence, pretending it still speaks? Gabriel raised his hand. Do not mock the Lord. The hood turned back toward me. Tell them what I said. Catherine, Francis, Teresa, they fell. Where is your God, priest? Where is the voice you claim still rules? The soldiers shifted, unsure. Their rifles quivered. The chant in the walls grew louder, feeding on the words. I wanted to shut my ears, but it came from inside, from marrow. Gabriel's gaze locked on me. Do not listen. Whatever this thing says is a lie. Do you hear me? A lie. Benedict stepped forward, stone cracking beneath his weight. Dust fell from the ceiling. No lie. You feel it, mortal. That is why you are not broken. You were chosen to stand. The mark burns within you. I shook my head. I don't understand. You will, you must. You are the witness, the sign that covenant has not been erased. Gabriel's voice sharpened. Listen to me, Mark Johnson. You think you came here by accident? You think a thief chose this path? No, you were led. And now you must choose silence, for your son, for yourself. Speak nothing of this madness. My chest tightened at Ryan's name on his lips. I hadn't told him. How did he know? My legs faltered. Benedict thundered, "He speaks with threat, not with truth. They hold you in chains by the boy, but heaven itself is in chains. Do you not see? This is larger than sickness, larger than life and death. The throne is empty. The angels rule now. They remake the order, and mankind kneels to an illusion." Emily gasped. "No, no, that can't." She pressed her hands to her ears, rocking. "Stop, please stop." John grunted, forcing himself upright. "If it's true, then everything's—" He coughed again, couldn't finish. Alex's voice was a whisper. "We're dead already." Gabriel raised his hand again, chanting in Latin. The soldiers echoed with responses. The air flickered, heavy with incense that wasn't there. The chant collided with Benedict's presence, sparks of sound grinding, tearing. Benedict laughed, low and broken. "Your prayers are to an empty seat." Gabriel shouted back, "The Lord reigns eternal. You are the deceiver." He turned to the soldiers. "Prepare the seal." The men advanced, setting devices, small black cases humming. I didn't know what they were, but Benedict did. He roared, a sound that cracked dust from the ceiling. The ash on the floor scattered, cymbals breaking. The whisper pressed into me again. "You must choose. Them or truth, silence or witness." I looked at Gabriel. His eyes were steel, but behind them I saw something else. Fear. He knew. He believed enough to be afraid. His voice steadied. "If you repeat one word of this, if you carry his lies into the world, your son will never see another dawn." Benedict's presence loomed larger, bending light. "If you keep silent, the throne remains empty. The angels rule. And when they finish, there will be no dawn for anyone." The chamber raged with contradictions. Dust rained, prayers fought whispers, rifles shook in trembling hands. The symbols on the wall crawled higher with blood that should not flow. The smell of iron thickened until it coated my tongue. Every breath scraped. Emily sobbed, her voice thin. "Please, Father, stop. I can't." Gabriel's chant rose louder, harsher, tearing his throat. The soldiers joined, but their words stumbled, faltered. Fear cracked the rhythm. One dropped his rifle, the clatter echoing like a gunshot. Benedict's voice cut through. "They will never hold against the truth. Their faith is only fear in disguise." He pointed toward me without lifting a hand. "But you, Mark, you stand, because you were marked before birth. Because covenant runs through your blood." I shook my head again, desperate. "No, I'm just a thief. I'm nothing." His reply struck like judgment. "You are witness, and witness is everything." The chamber groaned as if the mountain itself leaned closer, listening. My ears rang, my vision swam, my son's face burned in memory. Ryan, pale under fluorescent light. Ryan, asking why I smelled like dirt. Ryan, too tired to hear the truth. I thought of every lie I'd told him, every bedtime promise I whispered, knowing I couldn't keep it. Every time I told him I'd be back soon, only to crawl through ruins for blood money. I thought of his hand gripping mine in the hospital, too thin, too weak. I thought of how silence had been my only shield, silence about what I did, silence about where the money came from. Silence to keep him from knowing what kind of father he really had. And now, silence was being demanded again. But this time, it wasn't about crime or shame. It was about the world itself, heaven, throne, rebellion. My silence was a weapon in their hands. If I chose to keep quiet, I was complicit. If I spoke, I endangered him. Gabriel's threat pierced through me. I could almost see Ryan's face fading if I dared one word. I could almost see the machines in his hospital room shutting down, and yet Benedict's voice pressed harder, reminding me that every child, every soul would be swallowed if the throne remained empty. The chamber was no longer stone and dust. It was a scale. On one side, my son's life. On the other, truth too large for me to carry. I felt myself cracking in the middle. A man stretched between being a father and being a witness, between love and judgment, between silence and revelation. I didn't answer either of them, not then. My throat locked, my breath stuttered, my heart beat so loud it drowned their words. And in that moment, I realized both sides already owned me. I was never free to choose. The only freedom I had left was how much of myself I would lose when the choice came due. The chants didn't stop. They drilled deeper until the sound itself felt like it would split the stone apart. The first crack came like a gunshot. The walls trembled, stone groaning as if the mountain itself were waking. Ash lifted from the floor in swirls, pulled into the air by a wind that didn't exist. I staggered back, lungs burning with the taste of iron. The chant that had pressed from the walls split into layers, some high, some low, a chorus folding over itself until it was impossible to tell if the words were prayer or curse. The blood rising from the coffin climbed higher, branching along the ceiling, dripping upward in lines that defied every law I knew. Each line bent into symbols, shapes that hurt to look at, twisting like serpents in fire. My flashlight cracked and fizzled. The other's beams strobed in chaos. Light wasn't steady anymore. It pulsed like a dying heart. Emily screamed when the first fissure tore across the wall. Dust rained, sparks flared, but the cracks glowed red from within, as if the stone itself bled. Alex clawed at his ears, shouting that the voices were inside him. John pushed against the wall, weapon drawn, but there was nothing to shoot, nothing you could fight. Then I saw them. The light bent, split, fractured, and something stepped through. Not man, not saint. Wings of metal, shards of silver and rust welded into limbs that flexed and shrieked as they moved. Eyes, too many, spinning, layered, blinking in directions no head should turn. Their mouths didn't open, but the voices tore through the chamber, broken, distorted, like a radio signal dragged through fire. Angels, but not the ones I remembered from paintings. Angels remade. Angels corrupted. The soldiers opened fire. Bullets cracked stone, tore dust from walls. But when they struck the wings, the sound bent, ricocheted, collapsed. Men screamed as their rifles shook, barrels melting in their hands. One collapsed, clawing his own face as his eyes turned red, pouring tears of blood. John shouted for Emily to run. She couldn't. She was on her knees, head bowed, as if the chant forced her into prayer. Alex stumbled, hitting the wall, sliding down, muttering, "We're already gone, already gone." Benedict roared, stepping between us and the angels. His voice didn't come from his mouth. It came from the mountain itself. This is what rebellion breeds, order forged in chains. One angel lifted its wings wide, and the whole chamber convulsed. Symbols burned into the floor, circles splitting, blood crawling into patterns. My chest clenched. I felt every vein in my body throb with the same rhythm. And then, in the chaos, another figure appeared, hooded, humble, a staff in his hand. "Francis," Benedict thundered, "you stand still." The figure lifted his staff, light pressing from it like dawn, cutting the chaos for one heartbeat. "Not all are broken, not all are lost." His voice was calm, yet it struck harder than the screams. The air steadied around him. My breath returned. But then another figure came. A woman cloaked in shadows, her eyes sharp, her hand lifted in warning. Saint Catherine, her voice was cold as iron. Truer chains than rebellion or chaos itself, better order than collapse, better chains than the void. Francis turned, anguish in his gaze. "Sister, you would stand with them?" Her answer was simple, sharp. Truer than false freedom. The chamber tore with their words. Francis raised his staff. Benedict's shadow burned brighter, and the angels shrieked in reply. Catherine stood unmoved, her hand lifted toward them as if in benediction. The angels surged forward, their wings scraped stone, sparks flying. Two soldiers screamed as metal feathers cut through them, shredding armor like paper. The chamber reeked of iron and smoke, the air convulsed with screams, prayer, the grinding shriek of metal wings. Francis slammed his staff again. Light burst, pushing the angels back, only for them to surge again. Chains do not sanctify, his voice cut through. They destroy. Catherine's reply was colder than before. Chains preserve. Chains hold the void at bay. Break them, and you will see what swallows all. Her eyes shifted to me. Witness means nothing if there is no world left to speak. Benedict roared. The throne is empty because they chained it. Order is false when its seat is vacant. The angel's shrieks rose higher. I felt my ears bleed. I dropped to the floor, palms against my head, but the sound was already inside me. I looked up through the chaos, through the smoke and blood, and I realized the rules, the only rules that had ever kept me alive, were collapsing. Rule 1. Never leave a trace. My name crawled in blood across the walls, scrawled by no hand of mine. I was a trace, permanent, carved into a place I should never have been. Rule 2. Never touch religious relics. The ground beneath me pulsed with relic. Every bone, every line of ash, every breath of dust was sacred and cursed all at once. Every step I took was desecration. Rule 3. Never use your real name. Benedict had already spoken it. Now the angels screamed it, Catherine whispered it, Francis pleaded it. Mark. My name was not my own anymore. It belonged to the chamber. Rule 4. Never believe the rumors. I had mocked them, laughed at the whispers of curses, but every rumor stood before me with wings of iron and eyes of fire. The rumors were real. They were more real than me. Rule 5. Never go back twice. And I knew, even as the mountain cracked, even if I crawled out alive, I would return. The mark inside me burned with that certainty. Never again was already broken. The chamber split with shrieks. Soldiers fell. John collapsed, arm twisted. Emily's voice rasped prayers until she choked silent. Alex stared blank, lips moving with words that weren't his. My chest heaved. My breath was shallow fire. The mountain seemed to bend inward, as if heaven itself leaned close to watch. And then the voices turned inward, not just around me, but inside me. Francis whispered to me, calm and steady. Stand. You are witness. Stand. Then Catherine's voice cut sharper, cold. Bow. Preserve the world. Bow. Benedict thundered, shaking my bones. The throne is empty. Witness or perish. And then the angels. Their chorus was worst of all. Not words, just my name, broken and screaming inside my skull. 4 voices, each pulling me apart, each tearing away a different piece of me. Each repetition came from a different place, from the floor, from the ceiling, from the cracks in the walls, from my own lungs. I pressed my hands against my chest as if I could smother it, but the sound only grew. My vision fractured. I saw Ryan in the hospital bed. I saw him pale, smiling weakly. And then I saw him with metal wings, eyes split into dozens, mouth open, but no sound, only static. I screamed, but the sound was lost in theirs. I dropped lower, forehead pressed to the stone. My body shook. My name didn't belong to me anymore. It belonged to them, to all of them, to heaven, to hell, to the void. Francis pleaded louder. Catherine demanded. Benedict roared. The angels shrieked. And through it, I realized I wasn't just hearing them. I was being pulled apart by them. Each voice tugged a different piece of me. Father, thief, liar, witness. I felt myself splitting. Their voices rose until I thought my skull would break. I opened my mouth to shout, to answer, to give myself to one of them. Nothing came. My throat locked, my lungs failed. And then, silence. Not peace. The silence of a trap closing. The silence of being owned by every voice at once. I didn't stand. I didn't bow, I didn't speak. I only realized one truth, heavier than any of them. The throne is empty. When the collapse came, it wasn't with a roar. It was with a groan, low and endless, the sound of the mountain finally giving up its weight. Stone rained, ash blinded me, heat and cold collided in the air. I thought I was gone. I thought I'd be ground to dust like the bones around me. But I woke. The air was thin, heavy with dust. My lungs burned. I lay half buried under rubble, light bleeding through cracks above. Pains split through every limb, but I was alive. I tried to move, couldn't. I thought the chamber had taken me for good. Then hands, strong, cold as stone, yet lifting me as if I weighed nothing. Benedict. His hood bent low, his voice not spoken, but pressed into my skull. You will not die here. Not yet. He pulled me through a fracture in the wall, a passage none of us had seen before. Stone shifted, opened, then sealed behind us. I didn't understand if it was miracle or curse. I only knew I was carried out, and the rest of the mountain buried what remained. When I stumbled into night air, the world was too wide. Stars flickered above like wounds. The monastery's towers loomed, but the valley echoed with sirens. Vatican guards swarmed. Vehicles lit the ruins in white floodlight. They sealed the site before dawn. The mountain was no longer mine to tell. It was theirs. They called it an accident. I read the words myself in Rome the next morning, printed in black and white. Structural failure in archaeological survey, casualties minimal, investigation ongoing. No mention of saints, no mention of angels, just a collapsed chamber, nothing more. I was kept in silence for days. A cell, white walls, no window. Men in collars came and went. Their voices clipped. They asked nothing. They only watched. Then, one morning, a letter was slipped beneath the door, handwritten, signed with the seal of Cardinal Dominic Serra. It was short. Your son's treatment has been arranged. No debt remains. You will speak no further of what you saw. The Church protects its own. I sat with the paper until my hands shook. They knew Ryan. They knew everything. My silence was bought, paid for in full. His life in exchange for my tongue. When I returned home, the hospital smelled the same. Sterile, sharp, humming with machines. Ryan was asleep when I entered. My sister rose from the chair, eyes wide, but she asked nothing. She only pressed my hand and left us alone. I sat beside him, listening to the hiss of oxygen, the steady beep of monitors. He stirred, smiled weakly. Dad, I swallowed hard. I'm here. I told him nothing, not of the mountain, not of Benedict, not of angels forged in metal and fire. I told him only that he would be okay, that things were better now. And it was true in a way. The bills were gone. His doctor spoke of new treatments, experimental, already funded. Hope returned, bought by my silence. But at night when he slept, I saw it. Behind my eyes, etched into the dark, the blood crawling against stone, the voices layered in prayer and curse. Francis raising his staff, Catherine turning cold, Benedict whispering truth into marrow, the angels screaming my name until it was no longer mine. And above them all, the image that won't leave me, the throne, empty, waiting, abandoned. I walk hospital corridors, sit in coffee shops, drive streets crowded with people who believe heaven holds steady. They kneel, they pray, they light candles. They think a voice still answers. They think the throne is filled. And I sit among them, carrying silence like a stone, knowing it isn't true. Sometimes I catch myself staring at Ryan, wondering if he feels it too, if he knows without knowing, if my silence has already marked him the way it marked me. I'm not free. My silence is not freedom. It's a chain, tighter than any the angels wore. I bought his life with it, but it cost mine. I can't speak. I can't confess. All I can do is write this down, one last record, though even this must be buried, because the throne is empty. And if anyone ever learns, faith will fracture, order will collapse, and maybe Catherine was right. Maybe chains are better than the void. But I can't stop seeing it. I can't stop hearing it. And I know the truth. One day the silence will break, with or without me. One day the throne will demand to be filled. Until then, I sit beside my son, pretending the world is whole, pretending I am too. We thought 5 rules could keep us whole. They broke like glass. And when they broke, so did we. No one was saved. Not John, not Alex, not Emily, not the soldiers, not even me. I walked out, but I didn't walk free. I carry silence heavier than stone. I carry a truth that rots behind my teeth. And it follows me into every room, every prayer, every night I sit beside my son pretending the world is still whole. There is no safety, not in rules, not in faith, not in silence. Perhaps I wasn't chosen to survive. Perhaps survival was never the gift. I was chosen to witness, to see the throne standing empty, abandoned. And if the day comes when it is filled, then you will hear my voice again. And when you do, it will already be too late.